Hello again, it's Liz Yule from Old Stables Crafts again, and we are now on day 3 of our 12 tags for Christmas. And this is today's project. It's slightly different, it's more sort of monotone, so embracing the cooler green tones that we have been looking at in some of our seasonal papers this year. So this is the project we'll be working on today, but before I mention that, today this video should be going out on Saturday the 10th of December. Stampin Up have advised us that the last guaranteed shopping day for Christmas is Monday the 13th of December. So if you're thinking of putting an order in for gifting for Christmas, today or tomorrow would be my recommendation, because I think there may be quite a lot of people trying to order things on Monday. So with the weekend on us, maybe now is the moment to sit down with a cup of tea and a catalogue and see if there's anything you want to order. And obviously I would be delighted if you chose to order through me. There's a link to my online shop in the information below this video on YouTube, and if you're seeing this through my blog, then there's a link to the shop there, and that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So don't worry if you're watching this in the wee small hours of the morning. Still happy to take your order, and as I say, I'd be delighted if you chose to shop through me. So enough of that. I will remind you in the next couple of days as well, but enough of that for the moment. So this is today's project. So slightly different, both in shape and size and colours. So we are using the Lots of Labels framelit dies, and well named because there are lots. We are then also using the Seasonal Bells stamps, and the thing that's particularly helpful with these is that they're not just for Christmas. So yes, we've got Happy Christmas and Season's Greetings, but we've also got Best Wishes as the wedding bells ring, and then a Mr. and Mrs. So it can be used for wedding as well. So don't just think Christmas with these, because they do push past just Christmas. To go with that, we're going to be using the bell punch. So that's going to be relatively easy and straightforward for those bits. As far as measurements of card is concerned, we will need, let me just get my rather tatty, scrappy measurements. We need Emerald Envy, and this is 4 by 4.5 as a minimum, and that's 10.5 by 11.5 centimetres. I'm one of those old-fashioned girls who likes their inches, so I say the inches will probably always come first with me. So that's 4 by 4.5 inches, 5.5 by 11.5 centimetres. Don't worry about writing this down. It will be on my blog post that, again, will be linked in the information below if you're looking at this on YouTube. A scrap of mint macaron, that's just for the bell, so it just needs to be big enough to cover the bell. And then a scrap of silver foil. This needs to be at least, I've put 2.5 by 2.5. I don't think it needs to be. I think I've got that muddled with something else. This needs to be at least 1.5 by 2.5, I think, which is 4 by 7 centimetres. And this is just so that we can feed it through the bell punch, and I'll show you a way of saving a bit of foil on that. We also will be using Emerald Envy thick baker's twine, Versamark ink pad, silver embossing, and the 1/8 inch hole punch. Can't say that in a hurry. So enough of that, let us get on with the project. So let's clear some of this away. Let's start with making the basic tag. Now you will notice that these tags are scalloped at both ends, these labels. So we're going to do this slightly differently. What we're going to do is we're going to line this up, and this goes through the big shot, but we're going to line it up. The thing that's really nice about our framelits is that the cutting edge is right on the inside edge of the die, so you can see exactly where you're going to be cutting. Not all dies do that, so that's a real plus. So you can line it up right at the bottom so that you get this tiny little curve, but you don't worry about this bit. So let me just bring in my big shot, and let's hope there's enough room to actually do this. So let's get these bits out. Okay, so I'm using the ordinary base plate with the thin die adapter. You could use the magnetic base plate, which might be easier for lining up the bottom, but I'm not too worried. So cutting side down, as I say, line up at the bottom here. You can just hopefully just see that I've lined up the bottom so that it's just on that curve, and then let me bring in my slightly tatty top plate and just roll that through. And that should be that done. So let's have a look, and there we are, beautifully lined up with the bottom, so we get that nice little curve rather than a very straight edge. But I mean, if you're worried about it, obviously just use a slightly bigger piece of cardstock or bring it right to the edge, and you can then cut it straight across with your trimmer. But it's just worth bearing in mind that you can adjust the size of what you're cutting just by where you position the card. So let's get rid of those bits because we don't need those anymore. So, right, embossing buddy. We're going to be doing some silver embossing, so embossing buddy is always useful to make sure that we don't get embossing powder where we don't want it. So all over the back of that, and let's just make sure I've got the silver embossing powder ready. Then we're using the Season's Greetings, and while I've got this I'll also take out the bell that we're using. You'll see that there are actually 4 bells, and I'm using the one that's got the image that's more like a snowflake on it, and then the Season's Greetings. So for the Season's Greetings I'm using a D block, and I'm actually going to put it across diagonally. That way you're less likely to get a rock, and if it rocks it can end up not stamping terribly well. So Versamark ink pad, and make sure this is well inked, and you should be able to see when you look at it that it's shiny, and then just line up at the bottom. It just fits across nicely, so press down, and because this is one of the clear stamps, as in clear mount stamps, we don't need a foam pad behind it, and up, and I can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see that on camera, that it's stamped nicely. So let's pop that to one side quickly for the moment. Get this open, and then with my little spoon, oh, and that's the house phone going. I'll ignore that and hope my husband takes it. Oh, it stopped. That's all right then. So there we are. That's nicely done. I'll pop that to one side. We will be using that again in a minute. And now I'll get my heat tool. And it's always worth making sure that this is warmed up a bit first. It's less likely to buckle the paper. So if this is quite loud at the moment, I would recommend turning down your volume for a wee while we do the embossing. Don't get this too close to your hand, but I just want to make sure that it's warm. And then, now there is an argument for wafting I'm not a wafter when it comes to embossing. I like to just gently, and this, I love this. I've been doing this for years and I still love when the embossing powder turns. Just make sure that it's all gone nicely silver, which it has. And if it kinkles a bit, just put the heat gun on the back as well. And there we are, that's that done. And we will be using that again in a moment. So I'll pop that so that it doesn't run away. So that's, oops, embossing tool trying to fall off my desk. So that's that one done. We now need the piece of mint macaron and another block. This time I'll use the C block. Just make sure that that's nicely attached. Again, Versamark ink. Make sure it's well inked up. Embossing buddy, it's not quite so important with this one because we are going to punch it out, but it's still worth getting into the habit that if you're embossing to use the embossing buddy. Pop that to one side, and I'm going to stamp, because this is a slightly longer piece, I'm going to stamp that way, and hopefully it's then going to be long enough that I can get it in my punch, but if it's not, I'll show you a trick for that. So there we are, that's nicely done. More embossing powder. Off to one side. The heat gun should be still warm, so it's going on again if you need to turn your volume down. And there we go, it's melting. Now do be careful not to over melt your embossing powder. If you heat it too long, it will actually go dull again, and it will sort of sink into the card and become not terribly pretty. But that's all fine, and that's nicely melted, so that's that. I'll just put my heat tool away. Oops, which in my craft room means on the floor. I'm a standing crafter. I've got a bad back, so it's better for me to stand. So I do spend most of my day standing. So punch, open it up, in from the top, and yes, that's going to be a bit tight. So here's my trick for if you've got pieces of card that are just a bit too small for your punch to get them in and out successfully. Post-it notes. Makes it much easier just to feed it in, make sure it's lined up, and then, oh, out we come. And there we are, it's perfect. We're going to need that again. So, and I said I would talk to you about saving card. Let's do it at this end. So we'll come in from the side, and we need 2 of these. So just making sure that it's fully in. So that's one. And then because it is bell-shaped, if we turn the punch the other way up, and because we're coming in from the side we can do that, we can actually use, you see, I've gone into the bit that would otherwise be wasted. So just worth thinking about that. I'm sure you've already got that sorted out, but just in case. So there we are. We've got our tag. We've got our bells. Now, the way I've done these bells is to sort of give the impression of it ringing. So I've got the 2 silver bells pushed to the side. Sorry, you can't really see that. Pushed to the side. So on the back of one, because they're going to overlap like that, and almost to the point where they're not touching at the bottom, just a slight overlap but not very much. Line them up at the top, and then you can see at the back where you need to put your glue. And because this is foil, I'm using fast fuse just to make sure that it does properly attach. Just be careful to make sure you've got it on. Probably best to do this from the front. So get the bottom lined up, and then just line up the top. And then again, because I'm sticking to foil, I'm going to use fast fuse so I know it's going to stay. Just a little bit down the back, line up the top, sure you can see that. And then just try and get that in the middle. There we are. Then just a couple of, well, probably 3 actually dimensionals on the back, one at the top, one at either side. And then pop this so that it's just above the sentiment, and there we are. Then we just need our hole punch and just try and line it up in the center, and the screw is where the punch is going to be, so I want that to be sort of level with that top corner. So there we are. Then a piece of the Emerald Envy thick baker's twine through the hole, and there we are. So that's that one and the original. So that is day 3 of our 12 tags of Christmas. I hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you found it interesting. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see the remainder of the 12 tags of Christmas, or indeed any other videos that I'm doing, please subscribe. The link to the associated blog post is in the description bar below, as I've already mentioned. There's a link to my shop. Say, I'd be delighted to take your orders. It's obviously the way that I can keep these videos coming is to have some orders as a result of them, which, you know, blatant request for sales, but this is my business, so it is quite important to me. If you've got any queries, any questions, please put a message in the comments below. I do try and reply to all queries as quickly as I see them. If there's any particular videos that you'd like to see, any products you'd like to see me use, please let me know and I'd be delighted to do that. Slightly in advance of next year, for those of you that know Stampin' Up, you'll know that we've got a new catalogue coming out in January, and along with that is the Celebration, which is the mini catalogue that goes through from early January to the end of March, which is free products. So for a qualifying purchase, you get free products. So worth bearing that in mind if you're looking for things to spend your Christmas money on. If you've already bought through me, or if you buy through me between now and probably the 23rd of December, thinking about postage, I will send you out a paper copy of both the New Occasions catalogue and the Celebration catalogue. So those will be coming in the post to you. So hopefully they'll arrive between Christmas and New Year, just to give you something to read in preparation for the coming spring-summer catalogue. See if we can get some of the dull winter days behind us and start looking forward. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.